He controlled Miami's underworld with an iron fist. She vanished without a word 6 years ago. Now, on a perfect beach day with his fiancée, 3 voices shattered everything. Daddy. Triplets he never knew existed. A secret that could end his empire. And a woman who thought she knew the man she was about to marry. Some sins don't stay buried. Some truths arrive in threes. This is chapter 1, and nothing will ever be the same. If you want to see if Marco can protect his children from the enemies closing in, hit that subscribe button now, because what happens next will change everything. The sun hit Miami Beach like a blessing that morning, all gold and warmth and promise. Marco Santini didn't do relaxation well, but for Elena, he tried. She walked beside him in a white sundress that caught the wind, her hand tucked into his, her smile the kind that made dangerous men forget they were dangerous. "This is nice," she said softly. "Just us. No phones, no business." He kissed her temple, tasting salt and coconut sunscreen. Just us. Except nothing was ever just anything in his world. The beach was crowded, families, tourists, laughter rising above the crash of waves. Marco's bodyguards hung back, casual in their Hawaiian shirts but always watching, always ready. He'd built an empire on control, on making sure nothing surprised him. And then he heard it. "Daddy!" The voice was small, high, joyful. He didn't turn. Probably some kid calling for their father. People had normal lives here. Normal problems. "Daddy! Daddy, wait!" Closer now. Running footsteps in sand. Elena's hand tightened on his. "Marco." He turned. 3 children. Maybe 5 years old. Same dark curls. Same golden brown skin. Same eyes. Eyes he'd seen in the mirror every morning of his life. They were running straight toward him. Time fractured. The boy in the middle got there first, crashing into Marco's legs with the full force of a child who'd never learned to doubt. "Daddy." "You came back!" Marco's body went rigid. His breath stopped. The world narrowed to 3 small faces looking up at him with absolute certainty, with love so pure it felt like a weapon. Elena made a sound, something between a gasp and a breaking. Marco's voice came out wrong, strangled. "There's a mistake." But there wasn't. He knew it in his bones, in the way his chest cracked open, in the girl's smile that was his mother's smile, in the quiet one's careful study of his face. "No mistake, Daddy," the girl said, reaching for his hand. "Mama said you'd be here. She said you'd remember us." Remember them? He'd never known they existed. His mind scrambled, racing back 6 years. Gabriella, the woman who'd disappeared like smoke, who'd left a note that said only, "I have to go. Don't look for me." He'd respected that. Let her vanish, moved on. Except she hadn't just vanished. She'd been carrying his children. "Marco." Elena's voice was ice wrapped in shock. "What is happening?" The bodyguards had closed in, hands drifting toward concealed weapons, reading his frozen posture as threat. But how did you defend against this? Against 3 pairs of eyes that knew him, that claimed him, that shattered every carefully built wall? "I don't," he started. "Mr. Santini." A woman's voice, older, tired. He looked up. She stood 10 feet away, gray-haired and worn, holding a small backpack. Not Gabriella. Someone else. Someone who looked at him with something like pity. "My name is Rose," she said quietly. "Gabriella's aunt. We need to talk." "Where is she?" The words came out like gravel. "Where's Gabriella?" Rose's eyes filled. "Gone, Mr. Santini. 3 weeks ago. Cancer. She held on as long as she could. The world tilted. dead. Gabriella was dead. And these children. She wanted them to know you. Rose continued. Before the end, she made me promise. She said you deserved to know, that they deserved to know their father. The boy was still holding onto his leg. The girl had his hand. The quiet one watched him with an intensity that felt familiar, like looking into a mirror that showed the past. Their names, Rose said softly, are Lucas, Sophia, and Gabriel. They're 5 years old, and they're yours. Elena pulled away from him, not violently, carefully, like she was stepping back from an explosion in slow motion. Elena, don't. Her voice shook. Just don't. She walked away, and he didn't follow. Because 3 children were holding on to him like he was the answer to every question they'd ever had, and he didn't know how to be anything except what he'd become. A man who controlled the uncontrollable, who built power from fear, who never, ever let anyone close enough to hurt him. These children were already inside every defense he had. Daddy? Sophia's voice was small, uncertain now. Are you mad? He looked down at her, at all of them, and something ancient and terrible cracked open in his chest. Something that felt like grief and rage and a love so fierce it terrified him. No, baby, he heard himself say. I'm not mad. Lucas grinned. Gabriel nodded, satisfied. Sophia squeezed his hand. And Marco Santini, the crime lord of Miami, the man who'd built an empire on the bones of his enemies, felt his knees go weak. We should talk somewhere private, Rose said gently. There are things you need to know. About why Gabriella left. About what the children can do. What they can do. But before he could ask, Sophia looked up at him with those impossible eyes and whispered, Mama said you'd protect us. She said you're the only one who can. From what? The question burned, but the answer was in Rose's face, in the fear hiding behind her tired smile, in the way she kept glancing over her shoulder like something might be following. These children weren't just his legacy, they were his reckoning. And somewhere in Miami's golden afternoon, his empire began to fracture, not from enemies or betrayal, but from 3 small hearts that had just claimed his own. The penthouse felt too small. Marco had designed it for power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he controlled. Marble and steel. Everything clean and sharp and untouchable. A fortress 40 stories above the chaos. Now it felt like a cage. Lucas ran from room to room, shouting about the view. Sophia examined every surface with careful fingers, asking questions about everything. Gabriel sat on the white leather sofa, silent and watchful, his small hands folded in his lap, like an old man waiting for bad news. Rose stood by the windows, looking exhausted. Marco's men waited outside the door, confused but loyal. They'd protected him from bullets, from raids, from rival families trying to take what was his. But what did you do when the threat was 3 children who called you daddy? Elena hadn't answered his calls. He didn't blame her. Mr. Santini, Rose began, but he cut her off. Marco, just Marco. She nodded, sat down slowly like her bones hurt. Gabriella loved you. I need you to know that first. Everything she did, leaving, hiding the pregnancy, staying gone, she did it to protect you. And them. Protect me from what? His voice came out harder than he meant. From knowing I had children? From being a father? From what they are? The room went still. Even Lucas stopped running. Sophia climbed onto the sofa next to Gabriel, and the 2 of them moved closer together, like they knew this part of the story, like they'd been waiting for it. What does that mean? Marco asked quietly. Dangerously. Rose looked at the children, back at him. Has anything unusual happened since they arrived? Anything you can't explain? He thought back. The beach. The moment they'd touched him. The way the world had seemed to shift. Like reality bending just slightly out of true. No, he said. Rose's expression said she didn't believe him. Mama called it the gift, Sophia said suddenly, her voice clear and certain. She said we got it from both sides. From her family and from yours. My family doesn't have gifts, Marco said flatly. My family has guns and territory and... Your grandmother, Rose interrupted. Maria Santini, born in Sicily, known in her village as La Veggente, the seer. Marco's blood went cold. His grandmother had died when he was 8, but he remembered her. The way she'd known things before they happened. The way people had whispered about her. The way his father had forbidden anyone from speaking of it after she was gone. Superstition, his father had called it. Old country nonsense. It's not nonsense, Gabriel said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken. His voice was soft, but certain. We can feel things. Know things. Sometimes we can make things happen. Show him, Rose said gently. Sophia looked at Marco, her eyes too old for her small face. Do you have something broken? Something you've been meaning to fix? He almost laughed. His whole life was broken. But Lucas had already spotted it. The antique clock on the mantel, stopped at 3:47 for the past 2 years. Marco had bought it at an auction, brought it home, never bothered to have it repaired. It was beautiful, even broken. A reminder that some things couldn't be fixed, only displayed. Lucas walked to it, placed both small hands on the glass. Don't, Marco started. That's... The clock chimed. Once. Twice. 3 times. The hands moved, smooth and certain, sweeping forward to the correct time. 4:23 p.m. Tick, tick, tick. Marco's heart hammered against his ribs. We can't control it yet, Sophia said apologetically. It just happens sometimes. When we feel things really strong. When we're scared or happy or when we're together, Gabriel finished. It's stronger when all 3 of us do it. Marco sat down. His legs just gave out. This wasn't possible. This is why Gabriella ran, Rose said softly. 6 years ago, when she found out she was pregnant, when the first signs started showing. She knew. She knew what people would do if they found out. What your enemies would do. What even your own people might do. She was protecting them, Marco said hollowly. And you. Because you would have protected them. And protecting them would have made you vulnerable. Would have made you a target. Would have destroyed everything you'd built. He looked at his children. These impossible, beautiful, terrifying children who could apparently bend reality with a touch. What else can you do? He asked. The 3 of them exchanged glances. Sometimes we know when bad things are coming, Sophia said, like a feeling in our tummies. Sometimes we can find lost things, Lucas added. Mama used to hide our toys and we'd always find them. Sometimes, Gabriel said very quietly, we can tell when people are lying. His eyes were on Marco when he said it. And Marco felt seen, truly seen, in a way he hadn't been since he was a child himself, before the empire, before the blood, before he learned to bury everything soft and call it strength. You're scared, Gabriel continued. Not of us, of yourself, of what it means to love us. Sophia gasped. Gabriel, Mama said we're not supposed to. He needs to know, Gabriel insisted. He needs to know we already do. Love him. Even though we just met him. Even though he doesn't know us. We've loved him our whole lives because Mama told us about him every day. She showed us pictures. She told us you were brave and strong and you fought to protect people even when it was hard. Marco's throat closed. She lied about that last part, he managed. I don't protect people. I hurt them. I control them. You protect your family, Rose said firmly. Gabriella knew that. It's why she trusted you with them. In the end. When she had no choice. What do you mean, no choice? Rose's face went gray. Because they're not the only ones who know about the children. Someone else found out. Someone who wants to use them. Who sent men to our house 2 weeks ago asking questions. That's when Gabriella told me to bring them here. To find you. To... The window exploded. Glass and sound and chaos. Marco moved on instinct, diving for the children, covering them with his body as his men burst through the door, weapons drawn. Down! Someone shouted. Sniper! East building! But Marco wasn't listening to his men. He was listening to Gabriel, who had grabbed his shirt and was whispering urgently, 3 more. Coming up the stairs, they have the code. Someone gave them the code. And Marco knew with the same certainty that made him a king in this city, that his son was right. Elevator, he barked at his men. Now. Service exit. Get them out. Boss, we should... Now. Rose was already moving, gathering the children, but Sophia had frozen, her eyes wide and distant. Daddy, she whispered, they're not here for you. What? They're here for us. And Marco Santini realized that his empire, his power, his control, his carefully constructed world, meant nothing against an enemy he didn't understand. But these children were his, and anyone who came for them would learn exactly why people feared his name. They made it to the service elevator. Barely. Marco's men formed a wall of muscle and weapons, buying seconds they didn't have. The penthouse was compromised. The building was compromised. Someone on his payroll had betrayed him. He'd deal with that later. Right now, 3 small bodies pressed against him in the elevator's descent, and Rose gripped the railing with white knuckles. Safe house, Marco said into his phone. Location Gamma. 15 minutes. Full detail. And find out who gave up my codes, or I swear to God... Marco, Rose interrupted. We can't go to any of your properties. What? Whoever wants them, they know everything about you. They've been watching, planning. If we go anywhere you own, anywhere you're known, then where? His voice was steel wrapped in barely contained fury. The elevator hit the garage level. His armored SUV waited, engine running, doors open. His second in command, Victor, stood ready, grim-faced. Boss, Victor started. We've got a problem. I know. Marco cut him off. I need a clean location, somewhere off-grid, somewhere nobody knows about. Victor hesitated. There's a place, owned by my cousin, up the coast. Fishing cabin, old. No records connecting it to you or me. How far? 40 minutes. Not ideal, but better than staying in Miami where eyes were everywhere. Marco looked at Rose. She nodded. Move, he ordered. They piled into the SUV. Marco, the children, Rose, and 2 of his most trusted men. Victor drove like the devil was chasing them because maybe he was. Lucas had stopped talking. Sophia kept her hand in Marco's, squeezing tight. Gabriel stared out the window, his small face unreadable. You knew, Marco said to him quietly, about the attack, before it happened. Gabriel nodded. It feels like static, in my head, when danger's close. How close does it have to be? I don't know. We're still learning. Still learning. They were 5 years old. Marco's phone buzzed. Elena. Finally. He almost didn't answer. What could he say? That the children were real? That they had impossible abilities? That someone was hunting them and he didn't know why or how to stop it? He answered, "Marco." Her voice was cold, controlled. "I need you to tell me the truth. Are those children yours?" "Yes." Silence. Then, "Did you know?" "No, I swear. Gabriella never told me." "Why?" "Because—" He glanced at the children, lowered his voice. "Because it's complicated. Because there are things about them that put them in danger, that put anyone near them in danger." "What things?" He couldn't explain. "Not over the phone. Maybe not ever. Elena, I need you to stay away. From me. From them. From all of this. It's not safe. You're ending things. Over the phone. Because of children you didn't know existed until today. I'm protecting you. From what? From me. From the life I actually live. The one you thought you understood, but never really did." Her breath caught. "I love you. I know." His chest felt like it was caving in. "I love you too. That's why you need to disappear for a while. Take the trip to Europe you've been planning. Use cash. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Stay gone until I say it's safe." "Marco, please, Elena. Trust me one last time." The line went quiet. Then, "Goodbye, Marco." She hung up. He stared at the phone, feeling something vital tear loose inside him. Elena had been the future, the normal life he'd almost convinced himself he could have. But these children, this was blood. This was legacy. This was a debt he owed to a woman who'd loved him enough to disappear rather than destroy him. "You did the right thing," Rose said softly. "Gabriella did the same. Pushed you away to keep you safe. It didn't work," Marco said bitterly. "I'm still here, still in danger." "No." Rose's eyes were gentle. "You're still alive." That worked. The SUV took a sharp turn, heading up the coastal highway. The city fell away behind them. His empire, his territory, everything he'd built. For the first time in 15 years, Marco Santini was running, and he hated it. "Daddy?" Sophia's voice was small. "Are we bad? Is this our fault?" He pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "No, baby. None of this is your fault." "Then why are people trying to hurt us?" "Because some people fear what they don't understand, and they try to control it, or destroy it." "Like what you do?" Gabriel asked quietly. Marco froze. His son was watching him with those two knowing eyes, and there was no judgment there. Just curiosity. Just truth. "Yes," Marco said, because lying to children who could sense lies was pointless. "Like what I do. Are you going to hurt the people who want to hurt us?" "Yes." "Good," Lucas said fiercely. "They broke our window. They scared Sophia. They deserve it." Rose made a sound of protest, but Marco spoke first. "No. They don't deserve it because they scared someone. They deserve it because they made a choice. They chose to come after children. They chose to threaten people who can't defend themselves. And when you make that choice, you accept the consequences." He was teaching them. Already. Teaching them his way of seeing the world, where violence had rules and power had purpose and some lines. Once crossed, erased all mercy. Was that wrong? Probably. Did he care? He looked at Sophia's relieved face, at Lucas's fierce nod, at Gabriel's thoughtful expression. No, he didn't care. These were his children. And he would teach them to survive in a world that already wanted to use them, hurt them, take from them everything that made them special. The cabin appeared over the next rise. Weathered wood, perched on rocks above the ocean, isolated and perfect. Victor killed the engine. "Secure. I swept it this morning. This morning? Marco's voice went sharp. You knew we'd need this? Victor met his eyes. I've been watching the feeds, boss. The questions people have been asking. The way certain families have been positioning. Something's been coming. I just didn't know what. Who's been asking questions? That's the problem. Nobody I recognize. New players. Foreign accents. Big money behind them. Marco's blood went cold. How big? Big enough to buy loyalty from people who've been with you for years. Betrayal. Inside his organization. He should have seen it coming. Should have felt it. But he'd been distracted. By Elena. By wedding plans. By the illusion of a future that didn't include blood and secrets. Find them, Marco said quietly. Everyone who sold information. Everyone who gave up my codes. Everyone who knew about this trip to Miami. And then make sure everyone remembers why we don't betray family. Rose shepherded the children into the cabin. Marco watched them go, 3 small figures who carried his blood and possibilities he didn't understand. Boss, Victor said carefully, those kids, what Rose said about them, about abilities. Is it real? Would it matter if it was? Yeah, it would. Because if it's real, then whoever wants them isn't just after leverage against you. They're after something bigger. Something that could change the game completely. Marco knew he was right. Someone out there had learned about his children, had learned what they could do, and wanted to control it, use it, turn these innocent children into weapons or tools or worse. Over his dead body. Victor, he said softly, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Find out who's behind this. Use every contact. Call in every favor. Burn every bridge if you have to. But find them. And then? Marco looked at the ocean. Vast and dark, and full of things that could swallow you whole if you weren't careful. And then we teach them what happens when you come for a Santini's family. Inside the cabin, Lucas was asking about the seashells on the mantel. Sophia was exploring the small kitchen. Gabriel stood at the window, watching his father with eyes that understood too much. Marco met that gaze. And in that moment, something shifted. Not in the world, but in him. The man who'd built an empire on fear and control felt something unfamiliar uncurl in his chest. Purpose. Not power. Not revenge. Purpose. These children needed him. Not his money. Not his connections. Him. His strength. His protection. His love. And maybe, somewhere in heaven or memory or whatever came after, Gabriella was watching, seeing him finally understand what she'd known 6 years ago, that some legacies were worth more than empires, some bonds were stronger than fear. And some men, when faced with impossible choices, discovered they were capable of being exactly who they'd always needed to be. A father. The cabin smelled like salt and old wood and something Marco couldn't name. Maybe safety. Maybe the ghost of simpler lives. He'd never lived simply, didn't know how, But watching his children sleep in the small bedroom, curled together like puppies seeking warmth, he wondered if he'd missed something essential. Something that couldn't be bought, or taken, or built with blood. Rose sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around tea that had gone cold an hour ago. She looked older in the dim light, worn down by grief and fear, and the weight of promises made to a dying woman. Tell me everything, Marco said quietly, sitting across from her. Everything Gabriella never got to say. Rose's eyes filled. She blinked the tears back. Where do I start? The beginning. When she found out she was pregnant. She was terrified. Rose's voice was barely a whisper. Not of motherhood. She wanted children. Wanted your children. But when the doctor told her it was triplets, when she started feeling things, she knew. Knew what? That they'd inherited it. Both bloodlines. Your grandmother's gift. Her family's gift. Gabriella's mother could sense emotions, read people like open books. Her grandmother could move small objects without touching them. It runs in our family, has for generations. We keep it quiet, keep it small, because people fear what they can't control. Marco's jaw tightened. And my family? Your grandmother was stronger than most. Could see futures, possibilities, threads of what might come. Your father buried it, called it superstition. But Gabriella researched your family, Marco. After she met you, she wanted to understand you. And she found stories, whispers, about Maria Santini, about what she could do before your grandfather made her stop. Made her? Rose's expression darkened. Your grandfather was a traditional man. He didn't like being married to someone more powerful than him. So he convinced her to hide it, suppress it, until it nearly killed her. Marco's blood went cold. He remembered his grandmother, quiet, gentle, always seeming sad. He'd thought it was just her nature. But what if it had been something else? What if she'd been forced to bury the best parts of herself until there was nothing left but shadow? Gabriella didn't want that for her children, Rose continued. Didn't want them trapped between who they were and who the world demanded they be. So she left, disappeared, raised them alone, in secret, teaching them to understand their gifts, while keeping them hidden from anyone who might exploit them. Why come back now? Why bring them to me? Because she was dying. And because 2 months ago, a man came to our door. The room seemed to get colder. What man? Tall, expensive suit. Foreign accent. Eastern European, maybe Russian. He knew her real name, knew about you, knew about the children. He offered money, protection, said he represented people who could help gifted children reach their full potential. What did Gabriella say? She slammed the door in his face, but he came back, 3 more times. Each time with a bigger offer, each time with more specific information about what the children could do. Someone had been watching them, Marco. For months, maybe years, documenting their abilities. Marco's hands curled into fists. And the last time he came, he wasn't offering anymore. He was informing. He said the children belonged to an organization now, that they'd be collected soon. That resistance would be unfortunate for everyone involved. Did he threaten her? He didn't have to. Gabriella knew what people like that were capable of. So she made a plan. Contacted me. Told me about you. Said if anything happened to her, I should bring the children to Miami. Find you during the weekend. You'd be at the beach with Elena. She'd been following your social media, knew your schedule. She said you were the only person with enough power and resources to protect them. She was wrong. The words tasted like ash. I couldn't even protect my own penthouse. You got them out. You're here. You're fighting. Rose reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. That's all she asked for. Someone who would fight. The weight of it settled on his shoulders. Not just the responsibility, but the trust. Gabriella had loved him enough to leave him. Loved their children enough to bring them back. And now she was gone, and he was all they had. These people, Marco said carefully. The organization. Did the man give a name? No. But Gabriella did research before she died. Found references to something called the collective. Rich families, old money, people who've been collecting gifted individuals for generations. Using them, breeding them, Building some kind of... She stopped, shook her head. It sounds insane. Say it. Building an army. Of people with abilities. People who could change the world if they wanted to. Marco's mind raced. He'd heard whispers over the years, conspiracy theories about secret societies, about families with power that went beyond money or politics. He dismissed it as fantasy, the kind of stories civilians told themselves to explain why some people stayed on top. But if it was real, if these people existed and wanted his children, I need to make calls, he said abruptly. People I trust, people who owe me. Marco, I'm not giving them up. His voice was iron. I don't care who these people are or what they want. Those children are mine, and nobody takes what's mine. Rose's expression softened. Gabriella said you'd say that. She knew me that well? She loved you that well. The words hit harder than any bullet. Marco stood, walked to the window. Outside, the ocean crashed against rocks, eternal and indifferent. Inside, 3 children who could bend reality slept peacefully, trusting him to keep the monsters away. He pulled out his phone, started texting Victor, then stopped. Because Gabriel was standing in the doorway, small and silent in borrowed pajamas, watching him with those knowing eyes. You're scared, Gabriel said. Not a question. A fact. Yes. Of them? The bad people? Of failing you. Of not being strong enough or smart enough or fast enough to keep you safe. Gabriel walked over, took his hand. His small fingers were warm. Mama said you were the strongest person she ever met. Not because you hurt people, because you survived things that should have broken you, and you didn't break. Your mama was generous with her assessments. No. Gabriel's voice was certain. She was honest. She said you built walls so high nobody could climb them, but she found a door, and we're already inside. Marco looked down at his son. This impossibly perceptive child who saw through every defense, every mask, every carefully constructed lie he told himself about who and what he was. I don't know how to be a father, Marco admitted. I don't know how to be soft, how to be safe. You don't have to be soft. Gabriel squeezed his hand. Just be there. That's all we need. Someone who stays. The simplicity of it broke something in Marco's chest. He'd spent 15 years building an empire on the principle that attachment was weakness, that love was leverage, that caring about anyone made you vulnerable. But looking at Gabriel, at this child who carried his blood and his grandmother's gift and a courage that shamed him, Marco realized the truth. He'd already lost. These children owned him completely. And somehow, that felt less like defeat and more like the first real victory of his life. Go back to bed, he said gently. I'll keep watch. We could keep watch together, Gabriel offered. I can feel when danger's close, remember? Marco smiled. A real smile, possibly the first in years. Okay, together. They sat on the old couch, father and son, watching the dark ocean through salt-stained windows. And for a few hours the empire didn't matter. The enemies didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the small hand in his, and the steady breathing of children who trusted him with their lives. But dawn would come. And with it, decisions that would reshape everything he thought he knew about power, family, and what it meant to be worthy of the legacy he carried. Victor's message came at 4 a.m. Found something. You need to see this. Sending encrypted file. Marco opened it one-handed, keeping Gabriel close. The file was a dossier, photos, financial records, names, and at the center of it all, a symbol, a circle with 3 interlocking triangles, ancient, deliberate, the mark of the collective. They were real, they were organized, And they'd been hunting gifted children for over a century. Marco's blood ran cold as he scrolled through case after case. Children who'd disappeared, families who'd been destroyed, entire bloodlines erased. The collective didn't negotiate, didn't compromise. They took what they wanted, or they eliminated the threat. His phone buzzed again. Victor. Boss, there's more. They have someone inside. Someone close to you. The betrayal goes deeper than we thought. Marco's jaw clenched. Someone he trusted had sold him out. Someone in his inner circle was working for the people who wanted to take his children. He looked at Gabriel, who'd fallen asleep against his shoulder, peaceful and trusting. I'm going to burn them all, Marco whispered into the dark. Every single one. Because mercy was for people who played by rules. And the collective had just declared war on the one man in Miami who'd forgotten how to lose. The sun rose over the ocean like a promise the world couldn't keep. Marco hadn't slept. Couldn't. His mind raced through scenarios, contingencies, the chess game he'd have to play perfectly to keep his children alive. Rose made breakfast. Eggs, toast, nothing fancy. The children ate quietly, sensing the tension that had settled over the cabin like fog. When do we go home? Lucas asked, mouth full of eggs. We don't, Marco said. Not yet. Why not? How did you explain to a 5-year-old that home was compromised? That the walls he'd built to keep danger out had been breached from within? Because it's not safe, Sophia answered for him, her voice small. Because the bad people know where we live. Lucas's face fell. But our toys are there, and my dinosaur collection. And we'll get new toys, Marco said. Better ones. I don't want better ones. I want mine. Gabriel put a hand on Lucas's arm. Let it go. But let it go. Gabriel's voice carried weight beyond his years. Toys don't matter. Being alive matters. Lucas's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded. Marco felt something crack in his chest. These children had already lost their mother. Now they were losing their home, their belongings, the small comforts of childhood. Because of him. Because his blood ran in their veins. His phone buzzed. Victor. Found the leak. You're not gonna like it. Marco stepped outside, answered the call. Tell me. Dominic. The world tilted. Dominic. His right-hand man for 8 years. The person he'd trusted with his life, his business, his secrets. You're sure? Positive. Bank transfers from a shell company. Meetings with known collective operatives. He's been feeding them information for 6 months. 6 months. Before Marco knew about the children. Which meant Dominic hadn't betrayed him for them. He'd been compromised long before. This was deeper. Older. Where is he? Secured. Waiting for your orders. Marco's voice went flat. Keep him alive. I want answers first. Boss. Alive, Victor. For now. He hung up, stared at the ocean. Dominic had been at his side through wars, through territorial disputes, through the consolidation of power that had made Marco untouchable in Miami. They'd bled together, fought together, and all of it had been a lie. The door opened behind him. Rose. You found the traitor, she said quietly. How did you... Your face. You look like Gabriella did when she realized someone had been watching the children. Like the world just shifted under your feet. Marco's hands curled into fists. Someone I trusted. For years. What will you do? What I always do. Remove the threat. And then figure out how deep this goes. How many others have been compromised. How much they know. Rose was quiet for a moment. Then, there's another option. What? Run. Take the children and disappear. New identities. New country. Start over somewhere the collective can't find you. Marco laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think there's anywhere they can't find us? They've been collecting gifted people for a century. They have resources I can't imagine. Running just delays the inevitable. So you'd rather fight? I'd rather win. And if you can't, Marco met her eyes, then I make sure my children survive to fight another day. That's all I can promise. Rose studied him, really looked at him, the way Gabriella must have once, seeing past the violence to whatever remained underneath. She was right about you, Rose said finally. You're not a good man, but you're a good father. Or you will be, if you let yourself. Before Marco could respond, the cabin door burst open. Sophia, pale and shaking. Daddy, Gabriel says they're coming. Says we have to leave right now. Marco was moving before she finished speaking. Inside, Gabriel stood rigid, his small hands pressed to his temples. How close? Marco demanded. Close. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe less. There's 3 cars. Lots of people. They're... Gabriel gasped. They're not trying to hide anymore. They're coming fast. Marco's phone was already at his ear. Victor, we're blown. I need extraction. Now. Boss, the boat's 15 minutes out. We don't have 15 minutes. Then you need to hold them off until... With what? 2 men and a cabin that wouldn't stop a strong wind? Silence. Then, I'm coming. Just hold on. Marco looked at his children, at Lucas's fear, at Sophia's trembling hands, at Gabriel's ancient eyes in a child's face. He looked at the guns his men carried. He looked at the ocean, wild and vast, and offering no escape. And he made a choice. Rose, take the children to the bedroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I say. Marco, do it. Now. She herded them away. Sophia looked back once, her eyes meeting his, and Marco saw the question there. Are you staying? He nodded. I'm staying. The door closed, locked. Marco turned to his 2 men. They want the children alive. That's our advantage. They won't destroy the cabin if they think the kids are inside. What's the play, boss? Marco grabbed a rifle, checked the clip. We make them think we're dug in. Make them cautious. Buy time for Victor to get here. And if he doesn't make it? Marco smiled, cold and sharp and everything he'd learned to be in 15 years of survival. Then we make them pay for every inch. The first car appeared over the rise 3 minutes later. Black SUV, tinted windows, moving fast but not recklessly. Professional. Marco watched from the window, counting. Second vehicle. Third. 9 men minimum, possibly more. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Santini. The voice was smooth, accented, familiar from Rose's description. Let's be civilized about this. You shot up my penthouse, chased my children. That's not civilized. A misunderstanding. Overzealous contractors. I apologize. What do you want? To talk. To offer you something better than hiding in a fishing cabin with your children, waiting for the inevitable. I'm listening. The collective doesn't want conflict. We want partnership. Your children are special, Mr. Santini. Uniquely gifted. We can help them reach their full potential. Train them. Protect them. Give them purpose. By taking them from me. By including you in their future. You're a businessman. You understand value. Your children are invaluable. Join us, and you remain part of their lives. Refuse. The voice went cold. And we take them anyway. But you won't be there to see what they become. Marco's finger tightened on the rifle. And if I refuse, then we do this the hard way. And Mr. Santini? We always win. Always. Because we've been doing this longer than you've been alive. You know what I've learned in my business? Marco said quietly. Everyone thinks they can't lose, right up until they do. He hung up, raised the rifle, and fired 3 shots into the lead SUV's engine block. The vehicle lurched, smoking, disabled. Chaos erupted. Men poured from the vehicles, taking cover, returning fire, but cautiously, because they didn't know where the children were, didn't want to risk hitting them. Marco's men fired from the windows, controlled bursts, making each shot count. "They're flanking!" one of them shouted. Marco saw it. 2 men circling wide, heading for the cabin's rear entrance. He moved fast, positioning himself, waiting. The door exploded inward. Marco fired twice. Both men dropped, but more were coming. Too many. His men were skilled, but they were outnumbered 3-1. This was always going to end one way. Marco backed toward the bedroom, still firing, still buying seconds. "Victor, where are you?" A bullet struck the wall near his head. Another shattered a window. The cabin was being torn apart, and then silence. Complete. Sudden. Wrong. Marco risked a glance outside. The attackers had stopped firing, stopped advancing. They were just standing there. Frozen. No. Not frozen. Floating. 6 men, lifted inches off the ground, suspended in air like puppets held by invisible strings, their weapons dropping from nerveless fingers. Marco's blood went cold. He turned. The bedroom door was open. Gabriel, Sophia, and Lucas stood in the doorway, hands linked, eyes closed, their small faces serene and terrible, and utterly focused. The air around them shimmered like heat waves. "Children," Rose whispered, terrified. "You need to stop. You need to—" "No." Gabriel's voice was layered, deeper than it should be. "They came for us. They threatened our father. They end now." And Marco watched, helpless, horrified, awed, as his 5-year-old children casually demonstrated power that shouldn't exist. One of the floating men started screaming. The others joined him. And then they simply dropped, collapsed. Unconscious or dead, Marco couldn't tell from this distance. The children released hands, opened their eyes, looked at Marco with expressions that broke his heart, because they were still children, still innocent despite what they'd just done, still looking to him for approval or condemnation or understanding. "Did we do good, Daddy?" Sophia asked in a tiny voice. Marco couldn't speak. What had Gabriella created? What had his bloodline unleashed? The sound of a boat engine cut through his paralysis. "Victor. Finally. We need to go," Rose said urgently. "Now, before more come." They ran, Marco carrying Lucas, his men carrying Sophia and Gabrielle, Rose behind them, down to the dock where Victor's boat waited. Behind them, the cabin burned. Someone had set it on fire, covering their tracks. Ahead, the open ocean offered temporary escape. But as they sped away, Marco looked back at his children. They sat together, still holding hands, staring at the smoke rising from the cabin. They'd just killed men. Used abilities Marco barely understood. Revealed themselves to the world in a way that could never be undone. And they were 5 years old. "Where to, boss?" Victor shouted over the engine. Marco didn't know. Didn't know where they could go that the collective wouldn't find them. Didn't know how to protect children who might be more dangerous than the people hunting them. Didn't know how to be a father to weapons disguised as innocence. But as Sophia leaned against him, exhausted, and Gabriel watched the horizon with eyes too old for his face, and Lucas fell asleep despite the boat's rocking. Marco made a promise. He would figure it out. He would adapt. He would become whatever these children needed him to be, because they were his. And in the end, that was the only truth that mattered. The safe house was actually safe this time. A compound owned by Victor's family, built during the Cold War by people who understood that sometimes the world wanted you dead and you needed to disappear. Concrete walls, reinforced doors. Surveillance that would make intelligence agencies jealous. And it was in the middle of nowhere, 3 hours north of Miami, surrounded by swampland that would swallow anyone stupid enough to approach without permission. The children slept for 16 hours straight. Marco didn't sleep at all. He sat in the security room, watching feeds, waiting for the inevitable attack. But it didn't come. The collective had gone quiet after the cabin. Regrouping, probably. Reassessing. They'd seen what the children could do. That changed everything. Boss. Victor appeared in the doorway, looking grim. Dominic's talking. Marco stood. And you need to hear this yourself. The interrogation room was exactly what you'd expect. Chair, table, man zip-tied and bleeding from a split lip. Dominic looked up as Marco entered, and something like relief crossed his face. Marco, thank God, this is a misunderstanding. I can explain. Marco's fist connected with Dominic's jaw. The chair toppled backward. Dominic crashed to the floor, crying out. Explain, Marco said quietly. Explain how you've been selling information to the people trying to take my children. Explain the bank transfers, the meetings, 8 years of loyalty, and all of it was bullshit. No, Dominic struggled upright, still bound to the chair. It wasn't like that. I swear. I didn't know about the children, didn't know what they wanted until when? Until 2 weeks ago. They approached me 6 months ago, said they were businessmen looking to expand into Miami. Wanted inside information on your operations. Offered money. A lot of money. He stopped, swallowed. I was in debt, Marco. Bad debt. The kind people kill you for. I needed the money. So you sold me out. I sold them operational details, territory maps, nothing that would hurt you directly. I thought it was just corporate espionage, rival families trying to get an edge. Marco's voice went deadly soft. And when they asked about my personal life, my schedule, my penthouse codes, Dominic's face crumbled. I didn't know. I swear on my mother's grave. I didn't know what they were really after until they started asking about Gabriella, about children, he choked, about genetic testing and bloodline tracking. By then it was too late. They had leverage. Said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill my sister. My nephews. They sent me pictures, Marco, of my family, with crosshairs drawn over their faces. Marco studied him, looking for the lie, the manipulation. But Dominic was crying now, and the fear in his eyes was real. How deep does it go? Marco asked. Who else is compromised? I don't know. They compartmentalize everything. I never met anyone else on the inside, just my handler. European guy, maybe 40, scar over his left eye. Victor cursed. That's Alexei Volkov, collective enforcer. We have a file on him. What else? Marco demanded. They want the children alive. That's the primary directive. But if they can't get them... Dominic's voice dropped. They have contingencies, backup plans. Marco, these people, they're not like us. They don't think in terms of territories or profit. They think in terms of centuries, of legacy, of building something that outlasts nations. What do they want with my children specifically? I don't know. But I heard my handler talking once on the phone. He said something about the Trinity bloodline, about how rare it is to find 3 gifted children born at once, from 2 powerful lineages. He said. Dominic hesitated. Say it. He said they could be the most powerful assets the collective has ever acquired, that with proper training, proper conditioning, they could change the balance of power globally. Marco's blood ran cold. Assets. They saw his children as assets. There's more, Dominic whispered. They know about Gabriel, about what he can do. The sensing. The knowing. They're particularly interested in him. Called him the anchor. Said the other 2 are powerful, but Gabriel is the key. Marco's hands clenched. Why? Because he can find things, people, secrets. With enough training, enough focus. They think he could locate anyone, anywhere. Track other gifted individuals. Build a map of everyone like him across the world. A hunter. They wanted to turn his son into a hunter. Marco looked at Victor. Get him out of here. Keep him secured but alive. We might need more information. Marco, please. Dominic started, but Marco was already walking away. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His children weren't just powerful. They were the key to finding others like them, which meant the collective would never stop, would never give up. Because controlling his children meant controlling the future of every gifted person on Earth. Boss. Victor's voice was gentle. What do we do? Marco looked at him. This man who'd followed him for a decade, who'd never questioned, never betrayed. We go to war, Marco said simply. Full war. No rules. No mercy. Against the collective? Marco, they're global. They have resources we can't imagine, connections, power. They're also used to winning, used to people being afraid of them, used to everyone playing by their rules. Marco's smile was sharp enough to cut. I've built an empire in this city by being what everyone else was too scared to be. Time to remind the world why people fear my name. He walked to the children's room, opened the door quietly. They were awake, sitting together on one of the beds, talking in whispers. They looked up as he entered. Are you mad? Sophia asked quietly. About what we did. Marco sat on the bed across from them. No. Mama always told us not to use our gifts to hurt people, Lucas said. But they were hurting you, and we couldn't let them. I know. Are we bad? Gabriel's eyes were steady. Knowing. Are we monsters? The question hit Marco like a physical blow. No, he said fiercely. You're not monsters. You're children who defended their family, who used the abilities you were born with to protect the people you love. That doesn't make you bad. It makes you survivors. But we killed them, Sophia whispered. We felt it when they stopped. Marco pulled her close, pulled all of them close. Listen to me, all of you. What you did was hard. It was necessary. But it was also heavy. And that weight, that knowledge, it changes you. I know because I've carried it my whole life. Does it get easier? Lucas asked. No, but you get stronger. And if you're lucky, you have people around you who understand, who help you carry it. Like you, Gabriel said. Like me. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sophia spoke, her voice small. Daddy, are there more people like us? With gifts? Marco thought about what Dominic had said. About the collective's centuries-long hunt. About gifted individuals scattered across the globe, hiding, surviving, probably terrified of being found. Yes, he said. I think there are. Are they in danger? Like us? Probably. Gabriel's expression shifted, became focused, distant. I can feel them, sometimes, when I concentrate. Like like lights in the dark. Far away but there. Marco's heart clenched. They wanted to weaponize this beautiful, innocent ability to sense connection, turn it into a tracking system over his dead body. Gabriel, Marco said carefully, I need you to promise me something. Don't try to find them. Don't reach out. Not yet. Why? Because the people hunting you are hunting them too. And if you connect to them, you might lead the collective right to them. Understanding dawned in Gabriel's eyes. Oh, when this is over, when it's safe, then you can explore that, learn what it means. But for now, we keep you hidden. We keep everyone safe. The children nodded, trusting him completely. And Marco felt the weight of that trust settle on his shoulders like chains made of love and responsibility and fear. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He opened it. A photo. Elena, sitting in a cafe somewhere in Europe, unaware she was being photographed. And below it, she's safe. For now. But everyone you love is a target until you give us what we want. Marco's vision went red. They'd found Elena. They were threatening her, using her against him. He stood abruptly. Victor. His second appeared instantly. Boss? Marco showed him the photo. Victor paled. I'll make calls. Get her protection. Get her here. Whatever it takes. I want her on a plane in the next 6 hours. Private, secure. Bring her home. She might not come. After everything. Tell her she's in danger. Tell her. Marco's voice cracked slightly. Tell her I'm sorry, and I need her safe. Victor nodded, disappeared. Marco looked at his children. At these impossible, powerful, beautiful children who'd turned his world inside out in less than 3 days. Pack your things, he said quietly. We're moving again. Where? Sophia asked. Somewhere they'll never think to look. Somewhere I should have gone from the beginning. Where's that? Lucas pressed. Marco smiled, genuinely this time. Home. My real home. Where my grandmother was born. Where our family's power started. Gabriel's eyes widened. Sicily. Sicily. Because if the collective wanted a war over bloodlines and legacy, and the power running through his children's veins, Marco would give them one. On his family's ground. Where the old magic still remembered the Santini name. Where his grandmother's ghost could finally rest, knowing her legacy hadn't died with her silence. It had been reborn in 3 children who carried her gift and refused to hide it. The collective thought they owned the future. But they'd forgotten something crucial. Some bloodlines don't break. They burn. And Marco Santini was about to teach them the difference between hunting prey and cornering a predator. Cliffhanger hook for episode 2. As the plane lifted off toward Sicily 12 hours later, Marco received one final message from Alexei Volkov. Going to ground won't save them. We know about the old estate. We know about your grandmother's room. We know about the artifacts she left behind. See you in 3 days, Mr. Santini. Bring the children, or we start killing everyone you've ever cared about. Starting with the beautiful Elena. TikTok. And attached. A photo of Victor. Unconscious. Bound. In the collective's custody. Marco's blood turned to ice as he realized the truth. They'd been waiting for this. Waiting for him to run to Sicily. Because they weren't hunting his children. They were hunting him. And he'd just delivered his entire family directly into their trap.